Welcome back everyone. In this video, we're going to install Ubuntu Server using the bootable USB drive we created in the previous video. You can find the video link in the comments below. I'll walk you through every screen of the installer, explain the recommended options, and show you how to complete the installation all the way to your first successful login. Once the server boots from the Ubuntu Server ISO, you'll see the GNU/GRUB menu. At this screen, make sure Try or Install Ubuntu Server is selected, then press Enter to start the installation process. Next, select the language you want to use during the installation. In this example, we'll choose English, which is the most common option for server environments. Once selected, press Enter to continue. Next, we configure the keyboard layout. For most environments, English US is the standard and recommended option. Leave both the layout and variant set to English US, then select Done to continue. At the installation type screen, select Ubuntu Server. This option installs a standard set of packages that are ideal for most server environments and training purposes. Minimized installs are best for containers or highly automated builds, not walkthrough training. You can always remove packages later, but missing tools slow down learning. Leave the minimized option and third-party drivers unchecked, then select Done to continue. Next is network configuration. The installer has detected the primary network interface and automatically assigned an IP address using DHCP. In production environments, servers often use static IP addresses. This can be configured later after installation using NetPlan. Since the server already has network connectivity, we'll keep the default settings and select Done to continue. Next is proxy configuration. If your environment requires an HTTP proxy to access the internet, you would enter it here. Proxy settings can also be configured after installation if needed. Leaving this blank will not affect local or internal network access. In most cases, including home labs and standard server deployments, no proxy is needed, so we'll leave this blank and select Done. Next, the installer configures the Ubuntu Archive mirror. This mirror is used to download system updates and packages during and after installation. In enterprise environments, organizations may use an internal or regional mirror for performance or compliance reasons. For most deployments, the default Ubuntu mirror works perfectly. Since the default mirror has passed connectivity tests, we'll keep it as is and select Done to continue. Next is storage configuration. We'll use the entire disk and configure it with LVM, which is a best practice for server environments because it allows flexible disk management in the future. In production environments handling sensitive data, disk encryption with LUKS may be required, but it also introduces a boot time passphrase requirement. For this training, we'll leave disk encryption disabled to keep the setup simple. Once the options are set, select Done to continue. Before Ubuntu writes any changes to disk, the installer shows a summary of the storage layout. Here we can see the root file system using LVM, a separate boot partition, and a UEFI system partition. This is a standard and recommended layout for Ubuntu Server. Using LVM allows us to expand disk space later without reinstalling the operating system. Once you've reviewed the configuration, select Done to proceed. At this point, Ubuntu asks us to confirm the destructive action. Continuing will erase the selected disk and begin the installation process. Always double-check the disk you're installing too, especially in production environments, as this action cannot be undone. After verifying the disk and layout are correct, select Continue to proceed. Next, we configure the user profile and host name. This includes the administrative user account and the server name, which identifies the system on the network. Choose a meaningful host name and a strong password, as this account will be used for administrative access. For this training video, I am using a generic profile instead of personal information. Once completed, select Done to continue. At this step, Ubuntu offers the option to enable Ubuntu Pro, which provides extended security updates and compliance features. For this training video, we'll skip this step and continue with the standard installation. Ubuntu Pro can always be enabled later if required. Next, we configure SSH access. SSH allows us to securely connect to the server remotely. In production environments, it's recommended to disable password authentication and use SSH keys. Instead, we'll install the Open SSH server and allow password authentication for simplicity. SSH key-based authentication can always be configured later for improved security. Once completed, select Done to continue. At this screen, Ubuntu offers optional server applications known as featured snaps. For this training, we'll leave all options unchecked and install only the base operating system. Additional services can always be installed later as needed. Installing only what you need helps reduce attack surface and keeps the server lightweight. Once the options are set, select Done to continue. At this point, the installation is complete. Ubuntu Server has finished configuring the system and is ready for first boot. Select Reboot Now, and once the system restarts, remove the installation media. The server will then boot into the newly installed Ubuntu Server operating system. After rebooting, the server boots into Ubuntu Server. We can now log in using the username created during installation. Once logged in, we are presented with the system summary, including IP address, resource usage, and confirmation that the installation was successful. That's it. You've successfully installed Ubuntu Server. In future videos, we'll cover updates, SSH access, static IPs, and server hardening. If this helped you, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.